Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh, and we have Reed and Ben back on the Escape Pod today, just chatting about Jedi Fallen Order. It's been a while since this game came out, but we're going to be giving it a huge discussion, some lore, some review, just what we thought on the game. Major spoilers ahead for anyone who has not played through it fully, and a bit of spoilers kind of dropped in about Clone Wars and Rebels as well, because this game has many ties to many different things. So without further ado, let's chat to Reed and Ben about this game.
Another happy landing.
We've lost. The Empire's hunting Jedi survivors. Now, they know who you are.
I can't change the past,
You trespass, Jedi.
but I'm done hiding.
Cal Kestis.
We will always struggle.
It's the choice to keep fighting that makes us who we are.
Right. It's a cool trailer. And that music that you're hearing is Stephen Barton and Gordy Habb, the composers of the game. Gordy also worked on Battlefront 2 and Indiana Jones, The Staff of Kings, which is an old LucasArts game back in the day. But yeah, the music in this game is phenomenal. But before I get right into here, I just want to introduce Reed and Ben. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Hey, man. Yeah, thanks for having us back.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. It's just a fun time, chat about Star Wars, all that stuff. But yeah, just like off the bat, how do you guys find this game?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, totally agree. I think it was one of the best Star Wars games I've played in a long time.
Yeah. No, it's definitely it's got a really solid story, but I think like one of the best things about it is that it feels so theatrical. Like when you play the game just beginning to end, you get a full story arc of the characters, and you get, you know, just great music, and like the visuals are awesome. And I don't know, I mean, I'm a big fan of like kind of single player story games like that. I don't know about you guys, but
Oh, no,
you know,
yeah, I've always loved playing those games. I mean, because that's pretty much all we had back in the day, right? Before like online gaming really became a thing. So
Mhm.
I always love like a good story. It's like reading a really good book, right? Like, except instead of having to think up the images, like you're able to experience it for yourself.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my favorite game growing up, other than maybe Star Wars Battlefront, was Star Wars. What was it called? Sorry, I just.
Oh, it was that strategy game, right?
No, I mean that was definitely awesome. It was Force Unleashed. That's the game I was thinking.
Oh,
of.
Force Unleashed.
Oh,
yeah.
Force Unleashed. That was such
Yeah.
a good game. Oh man, played first and second one through. I think I played the first one 7 times through. Oh
Wow.
Yeah, I loved it.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was great. But this game had just that element of like Star Wars first person, you know, action adventure game that game had, except this was canon, obviously way better graphics, the music was better, and it tied into the Star Wars universe a lot better because they did create a lot of the characters in Force Unleashed, and maybe the Force abilities were a little bit over the top. But with this one,
just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one of the things I really liked about this game is that it wasn't like I because yeah, Force Unleashed wasn't exactly canon for the most part, and so it was kind of
mhm.
refreshing to see like not the over the top effects that we got with like Force Unleashed and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good point because this is kind of the only. It's one of the few games that we actually have in the canon, and I would say it's probably the only decent full length game that we've got because the
Yeah.
campaign in Battlefront 2, even though it was canon, it was really short.
Oh yeah, super short.
Yeah, it was cool, but like, and the story was like it was a good story, and the character of Iden Versio was pretty awesome. But I just feel like we didn't get enough out of that campaign, and as far as mobile games go, like there was a mobile game that came out kind of after Disney bought the company, and I forget exactly what it was called, but it was it was based on Bespin and oh man, I'm trying to remember here, but
Jedi
they
the
ended
Old
up.
Republic.
No, it was like a mobile Star Wars game. Hold on a second, let me just look it up here. Star Wars mobile game, and it was kind of based after Episode 6, and it took place. Oh, Star Wars Uprising. There you go, Star Wars Uprising, 2015, and it was a canonical game set after the events of Return of the Jedi, and it was 2015. It says it came out September 10th on iOS and Android, and that's pretty much it. It was basically killed off a year later though, and I'm not entirely sure why. It was made by Kabam, like the app developer studio, and I'm not entirely sure why they stopped the servers for that game. But yeah, it got killed off like a year later, and yet somehow the story kind of, even though it is canon, like even though the game's not playable or accessible anymore, there's some things that they actually took from that story being canon material and like translated it into other things and kind of referenced that game like in through some of the other source material. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they still kind of keep it as a point of reference even though it's not really accessible anymore. Did you guys ever play that?
No, can't say I did.
Oh
I
Yeah.
yeah.
didn't know it was a game.
Okay, yeah. I played it only briefly, and I don't know. I couldn't really get into it, but yeah. But anyway, so how did you guys find the characters in this game?
I really liked all the characters. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, no complaints really. Like great. Like there wasn't a lot that I really had a problem with this game. Like it was really good all around.
First time we see a ginger Jedi.
Yeah. No,
So
yeah, I guess that's true.
that's cool, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then we had what else we had Grease, the alien aboard the ship that you're riding around in. He kind of acts like this, almost like this stepdad kind of character.
Yeah.
Older kind of grumbling little man that kind of eventually opens up to a bit more, and yeah, no, it was interesting to see his kind of involvement with the game as well. But we had a pretty interesting character, Seer, which was the Jedi Master. Kind of throughout the game that you discover that she was once a Jedi Master, and it's kind of similar to Luke Skywalker has closed herself off from the Force because of a choice that she once made. And I think, Ben, you've read the backstory on this character through the mini series that happened called Dark Temple.
Yeah. So
Yeah, how about you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Sujinda. So she was Eno Cordova's apprentice,
Mhm.
which is awesome. And this, the 5-part comic series kind of takes you through an arc, just to give you a bit of backstory on who Sir Jindo was before she closed herself off from the Force and what she looked like under Eno. And yeah, it was really cool to see. She was actually quite an impulsive Jedi. Like she made some rash decisions. For example, in the first comic, they're on a planet. I can't remember the name, but they're trying to solve a dispute between some monks that are native to the planet and some Trandoshan's that are in conflict. And Steer kind of just jumps the gun straight to assuming the Trandoshans are wrong because they're pirates, and ends up ticking one off. They attack her, and she ends up killing a whole bunch of them. And then Cordova ends up coming out of his meeting with the priests and sees this like battle going on outside his tent. And he's like, "I just found out that these priests stole some of the guns from the Trandosians," and she's like mid slicing one in half, like, "Oh, whoops." So kinda, yeah. So it's they kind of start her off like that, and then obviously the next scene it flips to her being presented before the council, and they're like, "All right, thank you for thank you for resolving the issue, Seer. That was terrible. Like you know you need to." And they basically just tell her she's got to reel it in and keep her emotions in check. And so by setting that precedent, the very next scene is them basically being told to go to a planet called Ontotho. Yeah, Ontotho, and it's where this new ally of the Republic has just been, I guess, signed on as an ally, and they were asked to go there because one of the interests that the Republic, or at least the Jedi Order, had is they had an ancient temple there that when a previous Jedi who'd gone, he could sense something off the Force about it. And so Cordova, being the Jedi Temple's kind of expert on ancient cultures, particularly Force wielding cultures, they sent him there as well. So he and Seer basically just start this journey where they suddenly find out there's two factions that are opposing each other, and the faction that controls most of the planet's the one that signed the agreement with the Republic. The other faction, who you kind of get made out to be the bad guys, called the Filar, they're actually trying to protect this temple from the main organization getting its secrets. And and I think the coolest part that tied this whole comic series in with Jedi Fallen Order is at the start of every comic. So there's 5 comics. They do a flashback, or rather a flash forward, to Trilla, and you actually see Trilla going in and exploring this temple and meeting resistance while she's trying to get access to this temple. And you find there's a Jedi who attacks her at one stage. She's got a whole bunch of stormtroopers that basically just eradicate what's left of the Filar at this point. And she finds one of the orbs inside the temple. And so it was a really great way, I think, to kind of get some perspective onto who Seer was as an apprentice, and kind of what Cordova looked like in action rather than just as a hologram. Actually, to see him at a lengthy period interacting with his culture, trying to dig up the history and what his relationship.
Yeah, because he was an archaeologist of some kind, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, the Jedi Council, when they sent him there, the strict instructions were, hey, we want you to deal with this, help this relationship with this people go. But the reason we're sending you is because we have an interest in this temple there, which turned out to be one of the temples holding the orbs from the Zepho. So yeah, so it's really cool. I highly recommend anyone who's a big fan of the game. See if you can pick it up. They're out of print, but I found mine at my local comic book store. It was $20 for the whole series, and it was a really great read.
I'm still waiting for the soft cover volume, which is those are the ones that I typically buy, and then I let Reed I let Reed borrow them to read. And ironically enough, he's actually just did you end up finishing the Vader Dark Lord of the Sith series there, Reed, or are you still on that last volume?
The 4th volume, right?
Yeah.
I'm still on the 4th volume.
Okay, yeah. So it's Ben's got it right there as well. He's got some of the Vader down.
I've got the complete one.
Yeah. So the one that you're finishing up there, Reed, is actually it takes place. That series takes place right after Revenge of the Sith, and that's actually the first time that we kind of get a big spectrum of how these Inquisitors operate and how it works and everything, and it kind of sets the scene for those villains that are kind of a primary part of this game. And would you say, because you're on the last volume, which is called Fortress Vader, but throughout the comic series, it does set up the Fortress Inquisitorius
Yeah.
and all that stuff. But is there anything kind of throughout that series that you noticed so far that kind of has like some big Easter eggs to like this game?
I mean, I would say definitely, yeah, I guess, because I mean, you meet some of the characters. One thing that kind of struck me is that so the in the game Jedi Fallen Order, like all the Inquisitors that you meet are all female, basically, and so in the comic books, most of the ones you actually meet are males, and so it doesn't give away like a lot really, but like
Mhm.
it's still interesting because like you see it just gives you more like backstory really to like their purpose and their mission and like why they were created and their relationship with Vader and Sidious as well and stuff like that. And so if yeah, I mean if you're hungry for more about that then just what you get from the game, the little that you get from the game itself, then yeah, I would dive into those comics for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so all great content, and these are all like great examples too of like how the canon works and how like the story kind of interweaves through multiple different things, right? Like that's
Mhm.
like that alone is just the Vader Dark Lord of the Sith comics, which then kind of feed into this prequel series of comics, Dark Temple that Ben has read, and then there's the Jedi Fallen Order game itself, and then of course there's the follow-up Vader series after that, which is the one that Ben held up one in front of the Zoom camera there, the Vader Down and the classic Vader and Star Wars series as well. And then along those lines, we also get the ties to Star Wars Rebels, which is also like a huge Inquisitor centric kind of villainry going on in there. And this game actually feeds really well into that series as well, because like we've built up this kind of storyline over the last couple of years, that this 20-year gap that happens, or 19-year gap that happens between episode 3 and 4. There's all these things that kind of like are taking place. We got Rogue One and Solo that are kind of thrown in that gap, but then we have the entire Star Wars Rebel series, and then all these like comics and some of the books and everything. And it's really kind of taken that legacy that Star Killer left behind as a Vader apprentice slash Jedi killer kind of character, and we've passed that legacy off to this group of characters called the Inquisitorius, and it's a bunch of Jedi hunters that are basically going around killing all the Jedi that are left. And that's what makes this like game so cool, is that you're always on the run from these guys. Like you're always, it's not exactly exciting when like well, I mean, it can be exciting, but like it's not always exciting when you first start off the game and you're like, you're already name dropping like massive characters and everything like that. Like this game does a really good job at doing like a lead up to kind of the end boss battle, which was like a
Yeah.
huge kind of like Rogue One moment for me, when I was like, oh shoot, like Vader just showed up, like this character is dead. Like you spend
Right? Yeah.
20 hours investing in this game, and you actually want to see him die almost, because you're like, he's not around in the movies, like of course he's got to die at some point. But unless he's like an Ezra Bridger, which somehow he goes into hyperspace and leaves the galaxy or something like that. But yeah, like I mean, there's some possibilities there, but it's really cool, like that they've managed to not be afraid of kind of introducing these new characters, and then we get like these new interesting stories. And I don't know if you guys like Tomb Raider. I know like you've got a
Yeah.
PlayStation, right? Really, like you're really into those games.
Or well, I have the 3 new Tomb Raider games just on my PC. I don't think I really played the first one that much, but I've played the other 2
Hmm.
games, and they're fantastic games. And yeah, like it not in a bad way. The new Star Wars game Jedi Fallen Order is a lot like those games, just like the type of platforming that they do. The combat systems in some ways are similar. I mean, obviously you're using a lightsaber, so and force powers, so that's
Hmm.
very different. But just how you like go through the world, like I thought that was a really great uh, fit for like a sort of platforming role playing game. Like they did a really great job, and it just fit really well. Fit well with
Hmm.
the character and the game and the story and stuff too. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of want to go through and just kind of visit all the crazy, amazing locations that we visit in this game because I don't know. I like up front. I just want to say like what you kind of see as advertised, you actually get a lot more, and that's because and I'm gonna have this in the intro, but yeah, we're gonna go over like major spoiler territory here. But yeah, like there's some locations in this game that just pop up and you never expected to see them. Like
Oh yeah.
there's some places I was like, whoa, like that's in this game? Like that wasn't on the trailer or like this wasn't in the description kind of thing. Like this is kind of cool. Like it's taken me on an adventure that goes beyond my $80. It's like free DLC or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I definitely really like that about the game because the problem with a lot of like story centric games is that you're given like a 10 or 15 hour uh
yeah.
kind of binge, and so it's a great experience. There's lots of great stuff happening, blah blah blah, and then after that 10-15 hours, there's really not any more replayability past that.
Hmm.
But this game did a pretty good job of like just how it wasn't really an open world game, but it gave you the option if you wanted to kind of past a certain point to spend a lot more time exploring and solving puzzles and getting
Yeah.
into like more of like the lore of what's going on and stuff like that. So they
Hmm.
had a lot of great like incentives for that. Like early on in the game, it wasn't like you couldn't really just go around like run around and explore everything. You had to spend time like learning the game a little bit, learning some of the skills and how to get past certain puzzles and stuff like that. And then later on, if you so chose, like you could come back to all of those planets, or
Yep.
you could just pile if you really wanted to. You could pile drive through the story, but then you'd be missing out on like a lot
Hmm.
of a lot of content.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And speaking of the story, I mean, like there's some locations that we go to in the game in the story, and you can't revisit them. So like there's the worlds that like you're able to kind of do that replayability, but then there's some planets that those surprise ones that kind of pop up
Hmm.
that just you can't really go back to. Like we saw a few of those. The opening planet was one of them. We had Ilum pop up. We had the finale of the film on planet Nur. We had the whole Order 66 cutscene. We had that whole sequence when when Cal is on the ship where he has to fight his way out of that arena, that crazy
Yeah.
place. So there's like quite a few locations that was like really cool that I kind of wish that you would be able to go back to just to kind of walk through it and replay that level. And that's one feature I think this game, I feel like I wish it had, is just like the like almost like a chapter selection that you could go back and maybe like go to different key points in the story and just play from that point onwards. And
Yeah, definitely.
because that would be really cool. I really want to replay that final kind of finale of the game on in the headquarters of the Fortress Inquisitorius, and you can't do it unless you replay the whole story over again.
Oof.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of unfortunate, but I wish it's like because I would want to do that. So the other day when I was kind of refreshing my mind on this game and writing down all my notes and everything, I watched all the cutscenes at that end kind of sequence and on YouTube because some genius does actually screen record all this stuff, right?
Right on.
And I was like, oh, thank goodness, like I'm able to get my Vader fill.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going to the beginning. We start off on the planet Braca, and the opening shot of this game is so cool. Like we pull up over this like pile of junk, and you see a field of like downed Republic cruisers, like just all being hundreds of them, just being dismantled and recycled, and pieces of it thrown into this giant, massive Sarlacc pit, which is called Ibdis Ma or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think it's Ibdis Ma or something, which is this scary, scary looking Sarlacc, like way scarier than the thing that Boba fell down in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cal has basically been hiding on this planet as a rigger, helping like dismantle all these ships, and kind of instantly puts you in this setting of like 5 years post Revenge of the Sith. And
Return of the
you know, you
Jedi.
really get the feeling that that like, you know, he's been there for a while now.
Yeah.
And later on, we find out that this is the planet that he crashed on after Order 66 happened. He's been stranded here, and he just kind of got himself hired up as a rigger, and he's just been working for pennies like for the last 5 years, and just basically staying hidden from the Empire. But yeah, that opening shot was so cool. I don't know about you, but opening shots really sell it for me, and that was like a selling shot.
Oh yeah, that was a great shot. And so what's funny too, here's just a little nugget of kind of interesting information. So the opening song that plays along, like I don't know about you, but I thought this song was really awesome. So that the song or whatever that plays along with the opening is actually done by they're actually like a Mongolian rock band or something like that.
Oh yeah, I did look this up.
Yeah, so for the film, so a lot of that rock band or whatever, they do this thing called Mongolian throw singing, which is like a really like unique type of singing that you don't really hear anywhere else in the world. And they made like their own language or something for that song. So that song you hear is a bunch of Mongolian like rock guys singing in like a language that they made up specifically for this game.
That's about as authentic Star Wars as you can get.
Yeah,
like that's like what goes. That's the kind of passion and like work that goes into this stuff. There's so much work that's been put in this game, and yeah, that was definitely one element that
I just thought that was really cool. Initially, I was like, man, that's a really cool like music that they did there. Like, good on them for making that. And then I found out what they did. Because I had actually like I've heard of that band before. I think they're called the Who, HU, and so yeah, I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, and you can buy their single on online, like digitally. You can buy it.
Right on.
I think So I should get it actually. I should have played it right here on the show. But yeah, it's kind of a cool place. It's one that we can't actually revisit outside of the story, but just another reason why the story is like it's just so rewarding while you're playing it. But you kind of have this buddy. His name's Prof or Prouf or something, and he kind of says something to you. You and him kind of get a job, like you as in Cal Kestis, our Jedi protagonist, and he and him have to kind of get to the top of this ship and do something. And they see like an old Jedi interceptor ship with a dead kind of R2 unit sitting in it, and he has a small discussion about kind of the Jedi with Cal, who he doesn't know is a Jedi, and he says something along the lines of like, "Oh, too bad about all those Jedi. You know, they couldn't have been all of them traitors. You know." He's just very casual about it, but it kind of like made me think. It's like this is one of the few times that we see an outsider kind of have his opinion about the Jedi, and like this is since the days of the war when there was riots going on in the streets about, you know, the Jedi being responsible for all the terrible things that have been happening in the Republic. But this is a guy that's probably kind of lived on the fringes, and he's been working as a rigger his whole life.
Yeah,
and his opinion is like, oh, too bad about those Jedi. I heard they were pretty good peeps, you know, like.
Didn't he say he had been around since the Clone Wars or something like that? Was he? I don't remember if he said I don't think he said he fought in the Clone Wars, but I think
he's just. I mean, because the Clone Wars ended 5 years prior to the game takes place, right? And then this guy's in his like, I don't know, 40s or something like that.
Yeah, so he had been
50s.
doing this for a long time. So
yeah, he's been doing it a long time. He kind of acted as like almost like a fatherly sort of. Yeah. Or like an older friend kind of figure to Cal, because he said to Cal, he's like, you know, Cal, you're a young kid. You don't want to end up like me. Like when you grow up, like, you know, go on and find yourself a life in the galaxy. You got to get out and, you know, like find what you're good at kind of thing. And but anyway, like what he said about the Jedi, just that kind of stuck out to me in terms of like a kind of an interesting story hook that is like, oh, like, here's a guy that probably heard the stories and probably heard the news that was going on, you know, across the galaxy about this massive war that pretty much wrecked most of the planets across the whole galaxy at large. And he's like, yeah, too bad about all this Jedi, when, you know, the Emperor himself was like declared them traitors and you know, get all the clones to hunt them down and kill them, right? So
yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting, because one of the kind of the gaps, I guess, that I had kind of always seen between like the the Revenge of the Sith, and then like the first
Oh, like
like
A New
the
Hope.
New Hope or
Yeah.
whatever. It was that kind of like because like throughout the prequels or all the movies really, we understand the Jedi to be like at the forefront of everything. Like they're the top dogs. Like they're the good guys and stuff like that. Blah blah blah. But I like from that guy's perspective, like as like a normal person, like you kind of come to realize that the Jedi, even though they were like at the top dealing with a lot of these problems and stuff like that, they weren't necessarily like uh, they weren't like as prevalent an institution, say, as like we might understand, like as we appreciate them to be. Having to watch all the like everything through the prequels and then be at the forefront of everything. Like the Jedi's, I guess, were a lot more reclusive than we give them credit for it. Like, because I mean,
Mhm.
because this guy's opinion is kind of a testament to that. That like there could be a huge war raging on where the Jedi could be playing like a critical part in the Clone Wars, and like the rest, like a huge part of society, like not only don't really know what's going on, but then when this emperor claims that they're a bunch of traitors, like they would just outright like want to riot and bring them down and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and like it's that kind of stuff though that you don't always see through a lot of the stories that we do get, because they are kind of centered on
The top
Jedi
dogs, yeah.
characters. And and it's like we don't really get a kind of outside opinions, but this game does a really good job at kind of making that like Star Wars is kind of very known for kind of putting crews together which are unlikely, right? Like our unlikely heroes of Ben Kenobi and Luke and Leia and Han Solo and Chewbacca and R2 and 3PO, right? Like it's a kind of that unlikely batch. And in Rebels you get the same thing with the crew of the Ghost. And then now here again we're getting a cast of characters like Grease and Seer and Marin the Night Sister and BD1 the quirky little droid, and Cal the exile Jedi. So it is kind of interesting that we get those similarities. But yeah, we don't always get these like insights into the characters, like opinions like that. But yeah, that's a good point. And like what you said about the Jedi and all that. Like there's that moment in episode 4 where Ben Kenobi like activates his lightsaber and like pretty much just gives away the fact that he's a Jedi, unless maybe somebody stole a lightsaber. But you'd think like, dude, like you just revealed yourself. Like here you've been hiding like a hermit for 20 years. And one guy shoves another guy, and just to, I don't know. I feel like if he used the Force, and maybe he could have been more discreet about it, but he was like, no, I'm just gonna show them up with my lightsaber, chop off this guy's arm. And so
and everyone's just like, just an old
everyone kind of goes back to business. Exactly. Yeah. And this is like 20 years after the Clone Wars, so I guess a lot of these people kind of either don't remember the Jedi. They're probably like, oh yeah, when I was like 10 they were like a thing. Some of them probably they're probably don't think twice of it. They're like, oh, it's just some old man with a laser sword. They probably don't even know much about it, right? Like we have way more insight about the Jedi than half the characters in the galaxy do.
Yeah. You'd almost imagine that like a place like Tatooine, you'd get so many smugglers that come in with all sorts of crazy types of aliens with crazy types of weapons. Some of them are filthy rich. That it's just another Monday, right? This guy
exactly.
Like, oh, it's some other idiot who's got a giant weapon. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. That's a good point. And it's also like Anakin, like little Anakin, even though he was like 12 or 11 or something like that, he still refers to Qui-Gon's lightsaber as a laser sword.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's here to free the slaves. And he's like, and Qui-Gon's like, oh, well, why do you think I'm here to free the slaves? And he's like, oh, I saw your laser sword. Why else would you be here? Like, and it's like, wow, like, this kid's got some good insight, but I mean, he doesn't know everything.
He still doesn't,
And he's heard all the stories about the angels on Iago, which he asks Padme, like, are you an angel? And it turns out those angels, they're actually real. Like they're on a planet. They're actually on the planet Iago. We did see them throughout the Clone Wars in one episode, but they're not actually like our kind of angels. They're like an alien species that are glowing and they have wings, and you could almost consider them angels. But yeah, like it's that's why we love Star Wars. So many different things. But
So cool.
so this planet Braca was kind of interesting. It popped up in a recent novel that came out called Resistance Reborn, which is a novel that leads right into the Rise of Skywalker. And it is the same planet that the Resistance sends a crew there to claim secondhand Republic starfighters for the final battle that we see above Exegol. And as we're all aware, kind of the thing that, every single ship that we ever seen in Star Wars history is like in that battle, or supposedly. So part of the book, the book's plot point was that as they're trying to recover from the events of The Last Jedi, the Resistance is kind of sending crews out to do all these little jobs to kind of build up their power again to fight back.
Yeah. And
one of the crews that they send to Braca, which is where this Jedi Fallen Order game kind of starts off in, the crew consists of Shriv and Zay Versio, which are ironically enough from the other canon video game Battlefront 2. So I thought that was kind of an interesting tie that these characters from the Battlefront 2 game end up going to the same planet that Cal Kestis kind of lived on for 5 years before he goes off and does his thing. But yeah, just like an interesting parallel there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we also get kind of the introduction of the ninth sister and the second sister here. The ninth sister did show up in those comic books that you read there, Reed, but the second sister, this is kind of our first appearance of this character, which she wasn't in that batch. Weirdly enough, being the second sister, you think that she was maybe the second recruited, but I don't really know how their ranking works. But
yeah, and it seems like the Inquisitorius has a pretty high attrition rate, I would say. So, so it wouldn't surprise me if there were like, different people in that position prior and they worked their way up to that spot. Or
it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. By the end of Star Wars Rebels, we kind of see the last of the Inquisitors fall. But yeah, like it makes me wonder maybe if there were maybe maybe a position or two that was kind of maybe played in twice by somebody. But yeah, like so we get kind of the second sister is kind of more the main villain in a way of this.
She's definitely the primary antagonist.
Yeah, she's always the one chasing you down. The ninth sister is kind of a joke, to be honest. She's kind of like this dumb sort of big honking,
big bulky dumb, typical big dumb juggernaut.
Like that fight scene, like when we got that really kind of intense fight scene where we see Pralf, your buddy, die, and then that's when he kind of reveals himself with the lightsaber and locks blades with the second sister, and then she kind of tosses you over to the ninth sister, who then like chucks you off the edge of the cliff, and you kind of land on this train, and it's like, it makes you think, it's like, that's foolish. Like, like you're supposed to kill the Jedi, not just like let him get away by throwing him over there. And I don't know. And then, of course, then for the rest of the game, they're trying to get you back. They had the perfect chance to kill you right there at the beginning, and then they, ninth sister just botched it up.
Yeah,
kind of a typical like big person though. Like, any like, well, I think Yoda, right? Yoda has been very careful because of his size. He knows how to use the Force. He knows to use his he knows that he's smaller than everyone, so he knows not to compete with anyone that's bigger than him in a straight up fist fight. But a big sister like her, who's given all this power, all of this like status in the Empire, and then on top of that, she is bigger and stronger than everyone. Like they probably get cocky, use their strength. They're like, I'm just gonna throw you because I can. And then whoops. That was
yeah. And then the second sister, we probably didn't see it, but she was probably like, you fool.
Rolling her eyes like, oh.
It's like, oh, here he goes again. So the next planet that we go to was Bogano, which is the Outer Rim world to Jedi Master Eno Cordova. And it's not exactly a public world. Like, it's not a lot of people know about this place from what I kind of drew up out of the game. And it's home to the Great Vault, which has been built by the Zepho civilization.
Yeah.
And the vault is kind of the key of the game, because that vault contains the holocron that everyone is after. And it's like the vault that you have to get open by the end of the game. The holocron is a very special holocron, which actually, Ben, did you, by the end of the Dark Temple series, did it kind of say anything about this holocron and kind of give you a scene of like them putting it in the vault?
Let me get back to you on that. I don't think so. I think it kind of ended with them finding something in the temple, and then it says to be continued in Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, let me get back to you on that one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, when you get it, just pop up and interject here. But yeah, so it's so from what I kind of gathered is there's this holocron that sits in this vault, which Eno Cordova assumingly placed there because that's what he's been telling his droid, and his droid BD1 is now your companion. And you meet BD1, I believe, on Bogano. And I was starting to think as I kind of re-went through all these cutscenes, it didn't really occur to me at first, but I thought it was strange that this holocron it contains the information for all the Force sensitive children around the galaxy, and we've seen this plot point before. We saw this plot point in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. There was a story arc in the second season at the very beginning of our I covered it on the Clone Wars Talk series for anyone who's listening, but there was an arc of episodes which had Cad Bane steal a holocron from the Jedi Temple and then obtain a crystal, a kyber crystal, which had information on it from a Jedi called Bala Rapal, and together the holocron plus the crystal kind of combined would reveal the location of all the Jedi sensitive children that the temple was going to eventually kind of take and train as Jedi. So it was basically the next generation of Jedi. And Cad Bane kind of gets everything he needs, and it was a Sidious plan that he hired Cad Bane for, and they did successfully kidnap 3 of these children before the whole thing was dealt with by Ahsoka and Anakin, and eventually all the children were returned to their families, and the holocron was I guess returned to the temple. But it kind of made me wonder if this is actually the same holocron that we saw at the beginning of the Clone Wars that maybe the Jedi gave to Eno Cordova to maybe hide away in a different place, one that was maybe a lot more secure, and possibly a place that he knew about was maybe this vault, which was built by the Zepho civilization. So that was kind of like that kind of popped into my head, and I was like, oh, I wonder if that's maybe the same holocron that we saw. And of course, by the end of the game, Cal slices it in half, and that's the end of it. But yeah, that's he was basically like, okay, well, we don't want the Empire getting this information either. So let's give up. Big spoiler alert. But yeah, let's give up our kind of selfish needs to rebuild the order and let the Force decide.
Yeah, I was really glad that happened. Not gonna lie. So,
yeah, I was super happy about that because I was like, man, like, where's that gonna go from here? Because I can see where this is going, but it can't.
Yeah, to me, I was just like, because if they had tried to sell that, they're like, oh yeah, we're good. Like these are the guys that are gonna rebuild the Jedi Order. I just wasn't buying it because I was like, well, there's this Luke Skywalker guy. He tries to do it, and he's a lot more Force savvy than all of the people there combined. I just don't feel like this is gonna work out super well, especially since they're actually being like hunted down and stuff like that. So yeah,
and it made me wonder because I mean, obviously these Force sensitive children, by the time of I guess the Force Awakens, it would have been, probably 50 plus years or so into the future.
Yeah.
Or 55. Yeah. So about 55 years as of like, or maybe 50 years when this game takes place. So this holocron that they're after, which has all the information about all the Jedi sensitive children, would be, in their kind of midlife age by the time that we see Rey kind of take up the mantle. So it just kind of goes to show it's like, yeah, there's a lot of Force sensitives out there by the time of the sequel trilogy. We just don't really see too many. But then in The Rise of Skywalker, just kind of a interesting like sub note of this is that, we do see like a lot of people are kind of, force sensitive. Apparently, like we get hints about that with Finn and that stormtrooper girl that they meet. What's her name? Jana or something. Maybe I'm getting her name mixed up, but yeah, the one that rides the horse. And so like you kind of start to think it's like, oh well, we're getting a lot more force sensitive popping out because it's like, yeah, they just been running wild. Nobody's found them and trained them and combined them into this temple.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too because because initially these guys like the Jedi or whatever, or like Luke too is like obsessed with like rebuilding the Jedi Order and stuff like that, but you never ever really get that from the Sith. Like they want those names and stuff to take advantage of them, to kind of like bend them and twist them to their will. But like
Yeah.
Sidious and Vader never really have it, like other than having like an apprentice, I guess, they never have any desire to like build a Sith order or build up any kind of like internal competition for themselves. Like even with the Inquisitorius or whatever, like from the Vader comics you gave me, like you definitely get the impression that like they Sidious and Vader like do not remotely consider them to be Sith, and they're like highly expendable assets to them. Like they do not value their lives. I mean, if Vader at one point I think goes and like cuts off like at least one limb from every single one of them or something like that, like out of spite to
Yeah.
make them understand suffering. Like they could not care less about having a Sith order. It's just whereas the Jedi or the remaining Jedi, I guess, really want to rebuild their like institution. Really,
Mhm.
I think this game kind of gives you a lot of closure on that as well. Because by the end, this is a spoiler alert, by the way, but by the end of the game, when you see Darth Vader show up, like you're so used to fighting the Inquisitors, you finally see Sir Jinda like fight a little bit, and so you kind of get used to the balance of power that you have with the other Jedi and Sith around you, or Jedi and Inquisitors around you.
yeah,
But when Darth Vader shows up, like everyone is nothing to him. Like Seer jumps at him and he flicks his fingers and she's over the cliff.
Yeah.
She immediately just like you get 2 hits in on him and then he just completely blasted you back. Like the level of power that Sidious and Vader have, it's very clear that like they're at a completely different tier than than the Inquisitors. And so yeah, I think just to add what you're at, that this game just painted what a clear difference in power there is between an Inquisitor and Darth Vader.
Yeah, it makes you kind of also put it into perspective of like, to think that maybe Vader was really holding back against Luke when he was fighting Luke.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Like in Empire, definitely.
Well,
yeah, the only battle I think maybe just for no excuse whatsoever that could have been a lot more epic is just non-excusable because of the age of the film, but when he faces Obi-Wan again, that could have been handled a little differently, I think, if it was redone today. But yeah, just putting it into perspective, kind of when you see these epic moments of Vader and his wrath, and like Rogue One and his wrath, and then you see him fighting Luke, it's like, hey, where's all that display of power? It's like, is he holding back? It's like, yeah, he's holding back because it's his son, and he doesn't want to kill him. Like he wants to turn him to the dark side.
Yeah, and not just in like the fight scenes and stuff too. Like if you watch like the original trilogy, like from New Hope to Return of the Jedi, like throughout each movie, like especially New Hope, like throughout most of that movie, you see like, or like not in the fights and stuff, but like in the way that like his demeanor and the way he talks and carries himself around. Like Vader is a much like angrier and more aggressive guy. Like right from the get-go, with the opening scene with Tantive 4, he's like very angry and aggressive, and like throughout that whole movie, like he's just like no hold barred. And you still get a bit of that in Empire Strikes Back and then Return of the Jedi, but anytime he's interacting with like Luke or anything like that, it's way more tempered because there is that underlying like theme that like he wants, or love, or that he vis-a-vis the Sidious or whatever, that he wants to get control of him.
Yeah. First, it's definitely like definitely cloaked with his personal kind of stuff, like Sith stuff, greed, power, all that sort of thing. But yeah, like at the end kind of underlying point of like why he holds back possibly is because he loves his son, and that's ultimately kind of what brings him back to the light side is that he doesn't want to see his son die. And it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think
But
and I think I guess the newer Star Wars movies kind of expand into that a little bit. How even though there is a pull to the dark side, there is a little bit of a pull to the light side, and so his whole journey to the dark side, which you get to see in Star Wars: The Revenge of the Sith, right? When Sidious kind of strips away everything he cares about, so he doesn't have like he no longer has Padme. As far as he knows, his kids are dead, and then the last, I guess, piece of his past that shows up is Ahsoka, and then he has a moment where you think he considers it in Star Wars Rebels, where you can see the light pull at him that one kind of final time, and then he says Vader or Anakin Skywalker is dead. Then that's it. He's fully in. He's just a slave of the dark side, and then it isn't until Luke's introduced that he gets that thing that Sidious kind of tried to keep away from him, and now Sidious considers it his next test to see just how dedicated he is as a Sith.
Yeah. It's an interesting contrast to kind of Dooku's character, who we know as he's already kind of a man of power, being politically involved and everything, but he's a count. So like even if he wasn't a Sith Lord, he's already a powerful man in his own right, just kind of being a count of his homeworld of Sereno. But beyond that, he's also the leader of the Separatists, and he's also a Sith Lord. And it's like, man, like this guy, he's like constantly, and the Sith are always kind of wanting more power, and they're always wanting control of the galaxy, and that's just their thing. But when you look at Dooku, it's like he's a man that has everything, and the only thing he doesn't have is well what Vader does, which is he's got this light in his life that's kind of calling him back to the light side, which is eventually, which is Luke Skywalker, and Dooku doesn't have that kind of underlying positive, and eventually he loses his head for it, because the guy, his partner, his master, that he was so kind of hoping to kind of work with to take over the galaxy and maybe eventually kill one day and become the master himself, has just kind of turned his back on him, and do it.
Yeah.
Oh, and he loses his head.
Yeah, that's what's kind of interesting about like Dooku's character as a Sith compared to Sidious, is that he's way more like, he never really lets go of his status as like a noble or anything like that, right? Like he always
he embraces it.
Yeah, he highly embraces it, and he's always super trusting to extent. Like he's very blunt and open and aloof, very, very sure of himself, whereas Sidious is like the polar opposite of that. I mean, Sidious has his own like aloofness and stuff like that in his own way, but he's way more reclusive and like trusts absolutely no one whatsoever, which was ultimately Dooku's failing, is that he trusted his own master to protect him, but that just never panned out for him.
Yeah, exactly. All right, yeah. So we got our next planet kind of on the list, which is Dathomir. A really cool place. We encounter the Night Brothers and Sisters. We meet Mirren. And there was a bit of a story there with this character, Taron Malicos, which was a previous Jedi Master who crashed on Dathomir after Order 66, after the Purge. And it turns out that he's kind of turned to the dark side, and he now leads the Night Brothers after destroying their clan leader, Viscus, who actually popped up in the Clone Wars. He was Obi-Wan and Anakin spoke to Viscus when they were tracking down Savage Opress. But Viscus was responsible for kind of giving Savage Opress to Ventress to train as Dooku's temporary assassin before they tried to attempt on his life, kind of thing. But so that was kind of a cool kind of reference there that he had. And he also had Mirren teach him kind of the ways of the Night Sister magics, and then deceived her into believing that the Jedi were responsible for the Battle of Dathomir, which was during the Clone Wars, which was actually something that Count Dooku was behind as an act of revenge on Mother Talzin for kind of, betraying his trust by sending him this, guy to kill him, basically. But yeah, like that was like a really kind of hardcore, cool Easter egg there. Not more than an Easter egg. It was definitely like a bit of a cornerstone for that character. But yeah, Taron Malicos, interesting kind of canonical look at what a dark Jedi looks like. Like somebody who's not a Sith, but they've got the red lightsaber. They were a Jedi Master, and they die by way of the dark side, basically. Using the dark side, and one step further, this guy's also using Night Sister magic as well. So, very interesting.
Yeah, that was kind of, well, I think like in addition to that, like the kind of like an overarching theme, I guess, that I really enjoyed with the game is that it's not that like very true to the game's name, like Jedi Fallen Order. It's not that the Jedi Order is completely destroyed. You just, as you go throughout this game, you just could discover more and more ways that these people had kind of like fallen from the light side and have started to become like seduced or enthralled in the dark side. Because I mean, all the Inquisitors at one point or another served the Jedi Order and are Inquisitors now for varying reasons. And it's same with this guy. He was a Jedi and then he kind of fell from the light. And so it's just, it was just really cool to see. It's not the like, oh, it's destroyed, it's all dead. It's just a fallen
it's a fallen order. Yeah, and that's exactly, the fall of the Jedi, and just like the fall of the Republic essentially as well. Yeah. But like that's a really good point, and it also kind of it kind of makes you think. It's like, wow, Palpatine's grand plan went way beyond just kind of the simplicity of just taking over the galaxy. Like, he turned the galaxy against the Jedi amongst using them in a war, corrupting the kind of their morals while doing it, and used his apprentice to kind of control the other side of the war, having his hand in both pockets, and then using the Republic's army to eventually like wipe out the Jedi in the first place. I was like, man, like the guy's genius, and like really? He also used a Jedi to make the army with as well. We had Sifo Dyas. He was responsible for making the Jedi. So it's another Jedi that kind of felt as if the Order wasn't doing enough to protect the Republic, and ended up kind of using Dooku, and him used Sifo Dyas to kind of get their way with that. And because just like as you mentioned, all these Inquisitors, they were once Jedi or something. The Grand Inquisitor himself used to be a Temple Guard, and it's like, it makes you think. It's like, wow, Palpatine really had all these guys in his pocket kind of before the Order 66 happened. Like, it's very likely that when the purge happened, it's it's very likely that maybe these Inquisitors were kind of brought to the side, and Palpatine basically giving them the job of helping maybe Anakin kill off the Jedi, maybe even before they got all their fancy costumes and everything. But it seems like in the comics, though, it seems as if Vader didn't even know about these Inquisitors until he kind of meets the Grand Inquisitor. And I guess maybe he kind of had the Grand Inquisitor in his pocket before then, and kind of had him arrange the whole thing in a secret motion. But yeah, like that's a really good point. Like, just like, the whole Fallen Order connection, seeing Taron Malicos kind of one of those victims of, being once this great Jedi Master, who is now kind of sunk into the absolute depths of, darkness. He's not exactly like a Sith, but he's kind of sunk as far as he can before hitting rock bottom. And, eventually he does. And ironically enough, he gets sucked into the rock, into the floor.
Yeah. I mean, he really is. He's almost like, he's like a poetic petty warlord. Yeah. He's almost on, what's the planet? Dathomir? He's really become like a petty warlord. I mean, he's just like inserted himself in control of the Night Brothers and stuff like that. And Yeah,
Hmm.
just like basically just like claimed control of this planet for himself, and he's just kind of
Yep.
chilling, like wallowing in his own little bubble of power until you come along and bust that bubble
Yeah.
wide open.
And he presents himself to Cal very similar to how Darth Maul presents himself to Ezra. He kind of uses this kind of the wanderer, the old man kind of stature to present himself initially to come off as this very
Wise, innocent,
kind of
like
yeah, yeah. He comes off as this whisper, almost like a snake in a tree, and
yeah,
it's like he's like, yeah, this guy's not so bad. But later on in the game, when you kind of go back to Dathomir, it's like, oh, this guy's bad.
yeah, yeah,
And I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, and the theme's cool. Like I think it makes sense that a Jedi who no longer is bound by principles, or he doesn't have an authority looking over his actions. Uh, it makes sense. He would go. He's no longer an item of power where he was before. So he's gonna go, and if he's greedy enough, or if he's flirted with the dark side, he's gonna go and set up his own
Hmm.
little empire. And this isn't a new concept for Star Wars. Like even in some of the older Star Wars games, for example, like The Force Unleashed, they even had the same idea with Shaq T. Right? You go and find Shaq T on Felucia, and you suddenly realize that she has like all of the natives in this little empire of Felucia fighting for her, which
Yeah.
I know is not super canon, but it makes sense. If you've lost that authority and you have all this power, you're gonna go and set yourself up in an empire somewhere else.
Yeah,
yeah,
totally. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. And we get the Order 66 cutscene, which was really kind of an emotional part of the game. It's kind of where you learn about a little more about Gerald Tapal, Cal's master. We had the Revenge of the Sith soundtrack playing in the background as the clones, are chasing you down, young Cal, and kind of also gives the origin of Cal's lightsaber, which is half of his master's double bladed lightsaber, which you later on fix and kind of use as a double bladed lightsaber. But it's why it's actually torn up at the bottom and blasted off, is because one of the blaster bolts like snagged off the other end. But really, really cool cutscene there, or just an entire sequence. Like also directly kind of impacted by the canon, where you're on your way to the training room and you kind of high-fiving clones down the hall, and they're really acting like those kind of big brother kind of people that have been fighting alongside you, right? Like
oh
in the
yeah,
war.
yeah,
And then just like snap of the finger, and it's like they're turned on you, kind of ready to go. And you're just playing this kid, and it's
yeah,
like, man, like this is a dark moment of the video game. Like, you've never really, I mean, we've seen the
yeah,
children kind of kids die like in Revenge of the Sith, but I mean, like this is probably one of the darkest parts of the game, where like you're playing this kid who not only has to watch his master die and kind of escape with that, but also just to be like killing all your friends, like that are been fighting this war with you as well. Like that really sucks.
yeah. That was actually one of the things I think that they did really well. Like when they told us, like throughout telling the story of this game, like right from the beginning with your buddy on your like the scrapping planet and stuff like that. Like they spent enough time where like you were able to spend enough time with these characters that you could like have a relationship with them and like come to like
Yeah.
them like that. And that's one of the things I think they did really good, is that they didn't just throw you into one single flashback where you had to experience Order 66. Like you go back to those moments like throughout the game during your training, and so you get to know those like clone troopers and stuff like that. Well, as well as you can, them being like nameless clone troopers, right? And so you
Yep.
kind of build a relationship, you get comfortable with them, and then so when it Order 66 does happen, like it's that much more crushing, because you're like, what? I've known these guys like this entire game now. Like what's going on? Like they were, like you said, high-fiving me, like being best buds with me and stuff like that. And so it's just that much more devastating and crushing, because not only have you like become accustomed to like like you've been experiencing all these things as a kid, like you're able to relate to Cal's like the hardships he's going through and stuff like that, and then you have these like guys who you trust, and then they turn on you, and everything just goes like sideways in the blink of an eye. So you really appreciate the trauma that he goes through, like not just like having these guys turn on him, but losing his master and losing like his entire life up until that point, just gone in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, because that's the only life he's ever known. I mean these kids are, at least we get that from Ahsoka's point of view in the Clone Wars as well. Is like she's been she doesn't know any other life, and she's been raised on this Jedi code and with these morals and stuff like that. But she kind of witnesses the fall of the Jedi Order, and her essentially her life kind of as she knows it. But of course, as if you're watching the show, you kind of know what happens with her, before that all happens. But she's still in the same position where it's like she sees kind of this place that she was a part of, just kind of, fall essentially, from its pedestal that the Jedi put it on, and all their morals and everything like that. And for a lot of these like younger characters, like it's a very hard thing to watch their life basically just being flushed down the toilet.
Yep.
And to realize that, well, not to realize, but for us to kind of know that they don't realize that they're just kind of victims of this massive greater plan, which is also a big part of that plan is to essentially wipe them all out.
Yeah.
So yeah, or be used for kind of darker means. But yeah, so we also got Ilum, another planet that we can't actually revisit in the free play, but really cool to kind of see the lightsaber crystal, the caves on Ilum, the Jedi that we actually got a Clone Wars arc here as well, in season 4, I think it was. Of the younglings going there with Yoda, and they have to make their crystals and stuff like that. So we got a lot of cool, similar architecture. We got this; it's the same place. So we got the same kind of ice doorway that has to open up that you go through into the caves and everything like that. And that was really, really cool. I really liked. I really appreciated all the effort that they went to kind of recreate this place that we saw in a TV show cartoon. Into this playable experience, which is awesome. But yeah, we got the double blade lightsaber kind of by this point, and that you're able to split apart and do all this crazy stuff.
The double saber lightsaber.
Oh, was this on Kashyyyk maybe or Dathomir?
Yeah,
I think you did get on one of those places.
Yeah, what I did was like I went to Dathomir, but it was before I had progressed enough in the story that I could like what was it, like double jump or something like that. I think you need to progress past a certain point.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't progress.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. I couldn't progress because I didn't have the skills to keep going on Dathomir. But I did get far enough, like literally just far enough, to find this thing for your double bladed lightsaber. And so I got that like early on, and I was like, oh sweet! Like I don't know if I was supposed to do that, but it just happened.
Oh, okay. So Ilum, for you, did that like? One of you guys remind me kind of why we went to Ilum then, because you get the double blade lightsaber before then.
You get like that's when you can start changing. Like you get a bunch of different options for crystals and stuff like that.
You can change your color and stuff.
You take like. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
No, I was gonna say your light. The reason you go to Ilum, is that what you're asking, Josh?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember why we went there aside from the crystal.
Well, your lightsaber.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah. Right, yeah. It did break. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you have to go and rebuild it. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And then you do get so you got all the options, all the colors. The teal, the magenta. All the customization ability, and yeah. But I think the main thing that stuck out to me about Ilum is that you get the very clear, strong indication that Ilum is Starkiller base. Like we've kind of had hints of this through some of the resource books in the past, and and it's like the diameter of the planets are both the same, and the weight is the same, and this and that is all the same, right? But there's never been kind of any character in Star Wars canon so far that has said Ilum is Starkiller base. Starkiller Base is just referred to as Starkiller Base, and Ilum has always just been referred to as Ilum. But we get like this game kind of blends those two together and kind of says like, yeah, we know, like we're aware of the fact like all these both planets are on the same part of space as well. Like essentially this game is canonizing the fact that they are one and the same, and Starkiller Base is built out of Ilum. And so we see that in the game, like as Cal, like when you're fighting off all the Imperials, because for the first kind of chunk of Ilum before you get the crystal, there's no enemies. And then after you get the lightsaber kind of working and everything, you go through another tunnel or two, and then you end up in this massive kind of this like almost like a trench, like a massive trench that's being widened by these massive Imperial kind of mining machines.
Yeah.
And it's digging this groove around the planet. When you see it from an aerial perspective, it's like digging this entire trench around the whole like kind of meridian of the planet itself. And that was like, that to me was awesome. I was like, man, Force Awakens nowhere near my favorites, but man, like I really appreciated that a lot, because I was like, this is the kind of stuff that we need to like integrate those films kind of better into the existing saga, and like, which is desperately what they need. Like they need more kind of connective tissue, because right now they're just very disjointed. And at least that's the way I see them, is like there's not a lot connecting those films to the existing kind of George Lucas era. And this is just one more thing that I was like, okay, bang on, like we need more of this kind of stuff.
That was,
but yeah.
Yeah, that was actually really funny, like that whole sequence on Ilum, because you had been telling me, like, just when I got to that point, like, oh yeah, like, you know, you're gonna see this big thing and blah blah blah, and I was like, okay. And like, not gonna lie, like if you hadn't told me to like pay attention and look out for that, I never would have noticed that, because I was so busy. Like when you told me about it after, I was like, oh yeah, now I get it. But like going through those sequences, I was so focused on the combat, or like when you were flying away from the planet, my fancy new vinyls or whatever on my ship from the skin that I chose. I wasn't paying attention to what was going on. I was like, oh yeah, I got my like the cool lightsabers and stuff. I got my
focused on the cosmetics.
Yeah, my cool cosmetic for my ship, and I was just like, oh, I'm such a friggin' nerd. Like I didn't even notice the huge like Easter egg right there that Josh was telling me to look out for. Like, oh, I'm so stupid.
It's a cool one. It's a really good one. Like I quite enjoyed seeing that. I was like, man, that's really awesome. Like, and it also kind of brings it into a little more perspective as well, as to say that Starkiller Base was like, at least now kind of in the context of media that you can watch, it's now kind of visually represented that Starkiller Base was in fact an Imperial project, and is then later utilized by the First Order and probably finished. I would imagine, like finished in terms of like, you know, tech and stuff. This is all kind of like retroactively kind of connecting that whole plot point to to the Empire, but still, like I still appreciate kind of the work that they kind of did to incorporate that stuff. Definitely. So that was kind of cool. But so we got our next planet, which was Zepho, outer rim planet. Drew a lot of archaeologists and pioneers there. The Empire pillages this place and all the historical sites. And it's revealed on this place that the second sister was revealed to be Trilla, which is Seer's kind of lost Padawan.
Oh yeah, and, that planet was like gorgeous. That's the one with the big sequence where you go. Really, and it's got cool like place. the consecutive like lake waterfalls or whatever they are.
Yeah, a lot of like cool mist and clouds, and
that was an awesome planet.
Yeah, I really like that place. And we learn about some. Because Cal has got this interesting ability called psychosis, which he's able to kind of touch an object and through the Force kind of generate a memory out of it. And he kind of discovers along the way, I guess, that some Jedi had died here after Order 66. And this is now kind of the third place that we get the idea. It's like, just how massive the Clone Wars is. just like throughout the whole galaxy, that this thing just was the largest scale war to have taken place in like over 1,000 years. And because we get that on Braca, we have all the the downed ships and everything like that. We get that on Dathomir with Terran Malicos, and we got that on Bogano, where we see the vault that Eno Cordova had built before I guess he passed away, and then of course, and now Zepho being this place where we're seeing bodies of Jedi basically showing up, and it's like, man, like this Clone War left a massive scar on the galaxy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Benno, how'd you like this place?
I really liked it. I don't know. I'm a big fan of anything with like green and like water and trees. So I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I like Dathomir. As cool as it was, I think like Marin was probably my favorite character, like supporting character in the series. Like as cool as that little arc was, I thought Zepho was a sweet planet to like be a part of. It was totally a planet I could imagine an ancient civilization to live on. It was rich in life. You got to see some cool new like alien monsters that you got to fight. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a great planet to have as one of the options.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, what'd you think? What'd you guys think when kind of Trilla's kind of revealed to be the second sister? Like, I thought that was super Star Wars, like just that typical, Star Wars kind of reveal, like, all the way back to "I am your father" kind of thing. Like it was.
Oh,
one
totally!
Of those very...
It's like, I am your apprentice.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I thought it was a pretty cool moment.
It's smart because it makes it personal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not just good against evil. It's no. This I know this person. We have history. This is bad.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, and that's a good point. Like, and Star Wars is always about, it's usually got this lineage kind of legacy aesthetic to it in the story, and it's like we actually get that through Fallen Order. Like we see it with the relationship between Cordova and Seer, who is Master and Apprentice, and then there's the relationship between Seer and Trilla, which is Master and Apprentice. And then there's the relationship between Seer and now Cal, which is kind of this not exactly Master and Apprentice, but almost this like partnership and this this kind of different relationship that they have through the Force, where she's closed herself off and he's trying to rediscover himself through the Force. Because that's essentially kind of what you're doing when you're relearning all your powers and everything. Because he's over the last 5 years, I guess he's forgotten how to kind of connect with the Force in certain ways, which kind of explains how you kind of level up your character. But yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting contrast. Is that like, you get that same sort of ordeal with, Obi-Wan and Luke, who, used to be Obi-Wan and Anakin. And in the prequels, you get, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan and Anakin. So, yeah, just like you always get that kind of layered effect of Master and Apprentice. And it was interesting to kind of have that, without being stuffed in. It felt very kind of seamless, as if this had been already built up over time, and really well done. But
and I think that I guess I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I think that also played in really well to like kind of the overall theme of just that it's not like a destroyed order, it's just a fallen order, because her, like, the apprentice's story arc just plays really well into kind of the fall of the Jedi, really.
Yeah, and like, even though, and Fallen Order is in terms of like, do you mean like the way that they kind of operated, or just like the whole shebang, just like gone?
Just her, like how she was a apprentice and stuff like that, and how she was like tortured and brought to the point that she became an inquisitor and stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, because like we do see like Luke try and resurrect the Jedi Order, which I guess kind of brings us to the sequel trilogy again, as well as like, and like, as I guess, as long as like the Jedi are alive, I guess like the entire kind of idea is that there's hope in the galaxy, and that that these Jedi kind of live up to their place kind of being the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. And yeah, and like yeah, it's a good point. Like the Fallen Order, like as long as there's a Jedi alive, like technically the Order kind of lives in a way.
Yeah.
You know, I would say like the Jedi Code is probably like dead at this point. Like that's kind of what brought their downfall in the beginning. But
Well, yeah, there's no code or Jedi to uphold the code anymore. Really.
Yeah, there's no Jedi to kind of uphold the
I don't
code,
think
and
they
you kind of
never
see.
even talk about that once throughout the whole game. I don't think. I mean, because
No, yeah, at this point it's
Cal,
just kind of
he just doesn't know. He doesn't have a
no,
clue.
yeah, exactly. And you know, honestly, like if this wasn't a video game, like it would be a little questionable for Cal to be running around just killing creatures and stuff like that. Like, you know, I think like most Jedi would probably kind of act more like Rey does, where she kind of heals some monster and lets it go free or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Like that's just kind of that's just a very kind of prequel Jedi mindset to it. It's like, oh, this thing's in my way. I'm just gonna cut it down, you know?
Yeah.
And that's exactly kind of like where they end up going with like their morals, is like they just start flushing them down the toilet. And you know, that's a part of the whole kind of downfall of that whole legacy, is that they're just very kind of subconsciously like walking away from where they came from. I think the ideal Jedi that we've ever seen in Star Wars is Qui-Gon Jinn. I think like he is the pinnacle of like what it is to like fully kind of follow the Force and like not care about code and like not care about what other people say and like just listening to the Force. And like that's kind of like what leads him, you know, to, you know, bring Anakin to his side despite the Jedi Council saying that he can't train him. And it's what kind of leads him to get Obi-Wan the promise that he's going to train the boy, right?
Yeah, and he's technically the first one that becomes a
Force Ghost.
Yeah,
he's
Force
the first one
Ghost.
to discover the immortality, right? Like this guy is the pinnacle of like the Jedi entirely. Like even Yoda learns from him. Like Yoda's learning from Qui-Gon about
he's like, oh yeah, Obi-Wan, I just talked to your old master. Like
yeah, and major spoiler for any of those of you who've seen the Clone Wars, but yeah, towards the end of the show, like you'll eventually kind of see like this kind of story, this cool story arc about Qui-Gon Jinn and his kind of transference into the beyond. And it's a rare gift. Like it's kind of revealed that not everyone is able to do this. And he's kind of one of the few of the first that actually are given this gift and this privilege to kind of come back after death and speak with people in the present. It's a weird concept because the Force ghosts and stuff, they all exist outside of time. So, you know, technically they're know-it-alls.
Yeah.
but yeah. Anyway, so Kashyyyk, we got to see Kashyyyk, which was cool. I've always loved Kashyyyk. You know, we got a good look at that in Revenge of the Sith. We got to see it again now. And we got a really cool cameo for both Tarful, the Wookiee chief that we saw once in Revenge of the Sith, and we also meet Saw Gerrera and fight off the Imperial occupation there. And we saw Saw's partisans. And yeah, and we also saw kind of Saw's attitude in this game is much different than what he is in Rogue One. In Rogue One, he's this kind of bitter old man who's fought in a war too long, and he's got no relationship with the rebellion anymore. He kind of does his own thing. He's going off doing his own kind of almost terrorist act like movements against the Empire.
Definitely. Yeah, that was actually, I think, one of the things that I kind of enjoyed about this game is that it gave you a little bit more to that backstory, basically. Because from the movie, like you all you know is that he's just this old, miserable, resentful guy that used to have some sort of relationship with the rebellion, but became too extreme for them. And so you kind of see how that plays out in the game, like really well. Because he's like he's a fighter, like he's a really tough, like resistance or rebellion. Like he's a good leader and stuff like that, blah blah blah. But then, like as things go on Kashyyyk, you kind of see like how he like why he sort of starts to fall from grace a little bit. Like he just tries to like what did he try to do? He tried to like hold on to the thing that they took, and then they suffered like really heavy casualties defending it. I don't remember,
Yeah,
but yeah, that was
I'm
a good.
vaguely remembering it. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was a really good, and you saw it like yeah, you see the yeah exactly like the progression of his character basically, which is cool. The first time we ever meet the character is in the Clone Wars, and chronologically speaking, this is the second time in media that like in visual media that he actually pops up. I'm trying to remember if he pops up in any comics or books kind of between Clone Wars and this game, but the gap is actually quite tight, and it is cool to kind of see where he comes from in the Clone Wars and kind of today, like when he's leading his partisans against the Empire, trying to liberate the Wookiees, which is a ongoing effort that kind of leads into after Return of the Jedi. So it goes on a very long time. That whole effort to liberate the Wookiees, it goes on for like 25 years. So it's a long, or 20 years. It's a long journey for that. But yeah, we got the Night Sister duel, the ninth sister, not the Night Sister, the ninth sister Inquisitor duel, and her possible death. So what I want to ask you guys is, do you think the ninth sister is dead or not?
I think so.
We saw her like get force pushed over that cliff, and then that was the last we saw of her the entire game. There was no mention of her after that. And Cal did say it's like he defeated the ninth sister, but is she actually dead, or like what do you think?
She's dead. Yeah,
I think so too.
Because like even in spite of the fact that like Vader and Sidious have like no care or regard for them, like I think a good way to look at it is that they're like tools. So if they can repair and reuse that tool, they will. But
if they fail, then they're expendable.
Exactly. They're expendable. It past a certain point, they're not worth investing the resources to carry on with them. And so I think with the ninth sister, I think she's done. I don't think we're gonna see her again.
Yeah, I'm with you guys there on that one. It was brought up kind of somewhere online. People are like, well, the Inquisitors do have like helicopter lightsabers. You know, like they can technically kind of glide around with those, which is what we saw in Star Wars Rebels. Believe it or not, I know awesome. I'm not a huge fan of that, but yeah, it's a thing. So it's like a lot of people are like, well, she could have broken her fall with the helicopter saber, and it's like, well, I guess so, but I don't know. I think she's kind of toast at this point. Like I think it's safe to say that she's gone. And like in season 2 Rebels finale, which was probably one of my favorite episodes in that entire show, was kind of like a key element to this as well, because like we saw one of the Inquisitors pop up. This I forget the name of the guy, but he was wearing a helmet and jumping around all over the place and whatever. But we saw like I think it was like we saw 3 Inquisitors die just like that, like in that episode, or in those 2 episodes for the finale. And that, you know, and then Vader shows up and everything like that, and all that kind of happens. But yeah, it's just like one more kind of thing to kind of think back to. And I was like, you know what? Like, yeah, I think she's dead. I don't think she's a big enough threat or even remotely an important character to kind of bother making this epic return to to get revenge. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think she's gone. But yeah, that's what I got for Kashyyyk. So
if I'll add one more thing, I think they left it in a good spot though. So they make you assume it's dead. She's probably dead. They have announced a sequel for Jedi Fallen Order. So if they wanted to bring her back, it wouldn't be this cheesy resurrection story. It's like it's plausible. So
it's still possible. Yeah, it's still possible. I wouldn't I wouldn't kind of put money on the fact that they'll do it, but if they did do it, it's not going to bother me. Like I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like it's just
they left it in a spot where they can take it either way. I think she's
exactly.
I think they left it open.
Yeah, I think so too. I think if nothing ever happens with that character, it's kind of safe to assume that she's just dead. But yeah, no, that's a good point. They did announce a sequel. Is this official or is this unofficial?
I thought it was official, but
I
I
haven't
think
been
it's
paying.
it's one of those things where it's like everyone knows it, but they haven't like put out a title or a poster or anything like
Yeah,
official.
like I mean, I really hope they do. Like, I really want there to be a sequel. Like, I
Oh
really
yeah.
like all the characters. The story was fantastic. I really enjoyed the game in general. I really hope they do make a sequel. I'll be sad if they don't.
Yeah, I would be pretty bummed out if they didn't. It would kind of leave the fate of that character in a weird place as well. But yeah, well, it's they made this game. I feel like it's in good hands.
Yeah.
As whoever they worked with at the Lucasfilm Story Group on this collaboration, did a great job.
Yeah.
And
They really
and that.
they really set it up for a sequel too. Like,
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, because the last line of the game is like, "Where to next?" Right? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Cal cuts up that holocron, which contains basically the fate of all the force sensitive children of the galaxy, and he's like, "Nope, it's not for us. It's not for us to decide their fate. We'll let the force choose like what to do with them and what's next for us," kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
So we're gonna get something, even if they never make a new game. We'll get something. I think it would honestly be cool enough to actually see these characters pop up into one of the live action Disney Plus shows. I think that would be awesome to see Cal Kestis show up in perhaps like the Obi-Wan show, maybe maybe he kind of his path kind of crosses paths with Obi-Wan at some point. And I mean, the actor who plays Cal Kestis is the Joker from Gotham. He's played in live action television and film before. Like he's
cool.
and yeah, and so is some of the other actors on that in that game. Like they're all kind of established people in their own career, and it's like, yeah, it would be cool to see them. Like even if it was just Cal, I would love to see him pop up in one of the future like Disney Plus shows. I think that would be sweet. I think maybe like as far as the fate of that character goes, like I don't even want to speculate on what happens, but it would just be cool to get a cameo. And I think it would be the easiest to do. It would be even easier than doing like a live action Ahsoka, because the likeness of Cal is based on the actual guy. It's like Sam Witwer the Secret Apprentice. Like it's like, yeah, his likeness is just Sam Witwer. So yeah, but anyway, we got one more planet pops up in the game. It's called Nur. It's the headquarters for the Fortress Inquisitorius. It's where Vader and the final duel happen. A narrow escape takes place. And yeah, again, it's kind of like beyond that, you get the destruction of the holocron, and we got Trilla's death scene in there. But what did you guys think of that final kind of sequence?
I liked it. I was disappointed it wasn't Mustafar.
Actually, speaking of Mustafar, it is in the background, like in space. Like you get the sense that because you see a volcanic planet kind of like in the atmosphere, and I think that's where Mustafar is. It's like above this Nur planet. I think Nur is like one of the many moons in that system. And it makes sense because it's like it actually gives me major Lord of the Rings vibes, because Fortress Inquisitorius is one tower and then Fortress Vader is another tower, and they're on two different kind of planets, like opposed to each other, both kind of creepy places. One being this volcanic world, and then Nur being this kind of like oceanic kind of covered world, this dark kind of oceanic weird atmospheric place. But yeah, it gave me this major Two Towers vibe.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah.
No, if that's Mustafar, then that I'd say that's okay. Then that was good. But no, I thought I thought it was cool that there was a home base for it. I think I would have preferred it to be Mustafar, because then it would have made sense that Darth Vader would have had them all under close like observation. If it's in a another moon of a planet, then I guess that's pretty close. So
yeah, close observation I think is key for this, because it's like in a cutscene kind of on the planet, like if you look up in the sky, like you can see very clearly there's this giant volcanic orange Mustafar looking planet that's like looming above, and it kind of makes you think it's like, oh yeah, I feel like, yeah, like in they would be in close proximity naturally, just like Vader would probably want to keep an eye on them.
Well, actually, like based on the like the Vader comics that you had given me, Josh, like Vader didn't know about the Inquisitorius until Sidious told him about it.
That's right. Yeah.
And
At that
so-
point, though, he hadn't also set up his own castle yet.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, like it wouldn't. I mean, maybe it is Mustafar, maybe it isn't. I don't really know, but it wouldn't surprise me if like it they were like some substantial distance apart or something like that, because Sidious initially didn't you know, put it within like arm's reach of Vader or anything like that.
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
I love that.
Yeah,
it was
go ahead.
underwater,
Go ahead,
though.
Ben.
I thought
That was pretty
underwater,
cool.
That was so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really like a cool sequence of like how you actually even get in there, you know, to begin with. But yeah, the planet is kind of introduced to you as you fly towards it as Fortress Inquisitorius, and but on Wikipedia you can find it on under NUR, just NUR, and it says it's a water moon. On Wikipedia it confirms it. It says it's a water moon located in the Mustafar system.
Oh, there you go.
Of the galaxy's outer rim territories, that was home to heavily secured underwater Fortress Inquisitorius during the Imperial era. So yeah, that's all it says on it pretty much. But yeah, it's supposedly in the Mustafar system, which actually the Mustafar system is referred to the Mustafar system by in Revenge of the Sith by Anakin, I think. Doesn't he call it the Mustafar system?
No, General Grievous calls it the.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Grievous. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's right. I just sent a photo actually on our group chat here, so you guys can see it. But there's one scene that pops up through the game. I think it's just the one, or maybe it might be later on as well. But it's when you actually see the tower of Fortress Inquisitorius, and there's two planets kind of in the background, and one of them, the one in the far background, is this giant red kind of volcanic looking planet. I think that's Mustafar. But yeah, super kind of cool to have those in close proximity, and just to know it's like, yeah, Vader, now that he's in charge, you know, after he kind of discovers you're introduced to the Inquisitors, is what you're saying, Reed. Like he kind of takes them under his wing, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, what did you guys think of the Purge Troopers?
Didn't like them.
Didn't like him. Like as far as like a gameplay aesthetic goes, or just like
which ones were those ones?
They were the black armored with the purple like electro staffs.
Oh
yeah,
gosh, those guys were such a pain in the arse.
As a
the fast ones, oh my gosh, those ones drove me
nuts. With the two.
There was like 3 or 4 different types of them, and they all had different choices of like electro weapons that were kind of designed for fighting Jedi. Basically, they're essentially the Empire's version of a Magna Guard, but
basically,
basically specialized for hunting and helping the Inquisitors kill Jedi.
Yeah. I felt that as a gameplay mechanic, they were great. Actually, I thought they were okay. But as a
totally. I thought like they were a pain in the arse to fight and stuff like that, because like some of them were a lot easier to fight than others. But like it definitely kept me on my toes, because like especially when you're fighting like a whole bunch of other enemies at the same time, and then like 1 or 2 or later they start just rolling in like a whole bunch of those guys at different points in the game. Like I think on NUR, at one point you're in like a room or something like that, and you're fighting like you're fighting a whole bunch of those freaking things, and it's just like, holy crap, like
it's difficult.
It's a lot to deal with.
But Ben, you don't like them though.
Oh, I didn't like them as a lore like model. I kind of felt like it was just there were too many layers, right? You have at the top of the food chain, you have your Inquisitors, or I guess Darth Vader, then your Inquisitors, and then you have these like I can't remember what they're called, but guards that are
the Purge Troopers.
Thank you. And then you have like Scout Troopers with electro staves, and then you have Stormtroopers. Like it was just like there were too many layers of the same unit. It makes more sense that you'd have a Jedi hunting unit and then your military police Stormtrooper army.
Yeah,
that was actually something I didn't really like. I think like I I didn't really have a problem with the purge troopers or anything like that. I think it just like stems from like I didn't understand why they felt like they needed to turn the scout troopers into these like melee troopers and
Yeah,
stuff like that
yeah,
because
I thought that was kind of strange too.
they've had like no track record or history of doing that whatsoever. And so I think if they had like eliminated like a lot of those units in kind of the bottom layer, like the purge troopers would have been like to what you were saying, Ben, like they wouldn't have been like an issue. Like there wouldn't have been too much recycled of the same unit, kind of.
I actually could get behind that. That makes sense. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little confused kind of myself as well about the like I understand it from designing a like people that like minor villains that you kind of had to fight along the way, but yeah, I thought it was weird that they actually went with the scout trooper armor for the electro staff scouts.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was kind of strange. I think it would have been a bit better to kind of design just a new trooper in general as to not kind of confuse people. It's like okay, yeah, they're proficient with an electro baton or whatever. It's like then then they might be specially trained. It's like why don't they have a special helmet like the purge troopers do?
Yeah, like they really I don't think they did even have like any kind of sniper unit in the game at all. So
No,
like,
they
the
didn't.
only long range unit they had was like the rocket launcher ones or something. So it wouldn't have been like a bad fit to like put those units in from a gameplay standpoint.
Yeah, I think the only sniper you had was that purge trooper with that sniper rifle.
Oh yeah, maybe yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but I agree. It would have been better to keep the purge troopers as purge troopers and the sniper scouts as sniper scouts.
Yeah, definitely. Oh well, that's pretty much all the questions that I got and stuff to talk about. Is there anything that you guys kind of had going?
I thought it was cool that we actually got to, for once in the entire Star Wars series, get to see a Night Sister as a potential good guy.
That's true. That is true.
I wasn't sure originally like where like you fit, because it's the idea of a potential dark side user being good, right? But they did it, and I was like, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, like because Ventress, I don't think really counts when I think about Night Sisters, even though she's technically kind of one of them. Like she doesn't really use the magic, right? So yeah, like as far as like a actual like Night Sister witch goes, like that's a good point. Like it's really the only time that you get a positive out of that group.
Yeah. Like I honestly, it was that whole sequence was really funny to me because like I ended up liking her character a lot more than I thought I would. Because at first I just thought she was this like angry hoodlum all alone on this planet, basically like with the Night Brothers, and she's the last of her order, and she's gonna like you're gonna have to fight her and kill her at some point, and then she ends up being like a really solid addition or like character, and like you kind of feel for her plight, like the plight of her situation and stuff like that. And so I'm definitely interested to see how they like implement her from a gameplay perspective if or when they do make another game. Because you were only with her for like so much, like or like she had a pivotal role to play, but you didn't. It wasn't for like a substantial part of the game.
And I can see them really getting deep. Like if they really built on her character in the sequel, like they could go anywhere, right? Because it'll be this character who's naive to the galaxy. So they'll go on another planet, and she'll be like shocked, like, "Oh my goodness, there are so many trees here," or "Oh my goodness, like, what the heck?" She just everything's new and fresh for her. And then I can almost see them trying to build a relationship between her and Cal, maybe a little bit.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I was like, I definitely saw that when she like takes off the hood and stuff, and I was like, wow, that's actually like an attractive character, not just like an angry like emo hoodlum or whatever that's been stuck on this planet by herself. Like she. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I know, totally. Yeah.
She became dateable.
Basically, yeah. Not really.
Thanks for coming on the show.
thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Good
thanks,
being
man.
back.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun chatting too. It's been a while.
Always. Yeah, it's been a while for sure. All right, thanks, guys.
All right.
All right, thanks Reed, thanks Ben for coming back and participating on the show. Super awesome, always great to have you guys back. And to all you listeners out there, if you're able to share this episode with a friend or this podcast with a fellow fan, that would be awesome. I know a lot of you guys are in isolation these days, and you know Star Wars podcasts are kind of maybe what's getting you by, but hopefully you know we're able to kind of entertain you guys at home. Whether you're, you know, in the kitchen doing dishes, whatever it may be, hopefully this does some good. But what did you think of Jedi Fallen Order? I know EA's been kind of giving out codes here and there, left, right, and center. So maybe pay attention to their Twitter feed if you haven't been, because they have been giving away copies of the game for free at this point, which is really generous. But yeah, what did you think of the game? Let us know. The ways to contact us are in the description below. We're also happy to take voice memos on the show as well. I haven't received any as of yet, but you know, there's always a first. So yeah, what did you think of the game? And you know, did you finish it? Maybe that's something to do in isolation, because we got a lot of time on our hands these days. So might want to get on it if you haven't yet. But you know, if you listen to this whole thing and don't care, then hopefully you got something out of it. It's a great game, and if you ever feel like picking it up, it is definitely worth the money I pay for it. At least it's got a lot of replayability, and I feel like it's a great Star Wars story amongst anything else. It's got a lot of time and effort put into it. So thanks for listening, guys. May the Force be with you.